Welcome to the Kapital News. I am your host, Alex Karitis. Today is Monday, October 5th, 2020. Thank you so much for joining me. The title of today's podcast, The Trump Show and Biden Townhall. We're going to focus our discussion here today primarily on the president's health, his release from Walter Reed Medical Center back at the White House, what that might mean, what's going on there. And then if you were aware or unaware, Joe Biden did have another town hall this evening in Miami in that battleground state of Florida, hosted by Lester Holt of NBC News. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, to market performance, we had a strong day across the board in equities here in the U.S. Could this be on the back of the president seemingly doing better, being released from Walter Reed back at the White House? Could this be with Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin continuing with their discussions on another round of spending, getting closer to an agreement somewhere in that $1.5–2 trillion range? Of course, we don't have it, but the crackheads have been conditioned on Wall Street to love Banana Republic money. So that's what we are going to continue to see until we don't. The dollar index is trading at 93.376. This is down for the day, and we're going to get to the bond market because it was a doozy today. But again, the dollar index is at 93.3. Right now in overnight futures trading, we have the Dow Jones Industrial Average up about 0.2%. The S&P 500 is up about 0.2% as well, and NASDAQ 100 is down about 0.3%. But again, a huge rally across the board, especially in the tech space today in the NASDAQ. Cash trade in Japan is up about 0.4%. A sea of green across the pond in Europe, anywhere from about 0.7 to 1%. And the Australian cash trade is relatively flat. Just coming across the wires, the Reserve Bank of Australia has decided to keep interest rates at a record low of 25 basis points. This is no surprise. This is a race to the bottom, and of course they have to finance another round of massive spending in the land down under as well. So we'll keep you updated as other major reserve banks and central banks make their decisions with respect to interest rates, and we all know what's going to happen. On the equity front, we have Apple gaining 3%, Tesla up 2.5%, Microsoft up 2%, Amazon up 2.33%, Alphabet, the parent company of Google, gaining 1.9% for the day, and rounding it off, Facebook gaining 1.8%. Big rally in commodities today, especially with oil. WTI is trading at $39.38, Brent at $41.48. This could very well be on the back of a weaker dollar, or perhaps people think that another round of spending is going to mean, oh, everything's great, there's going to be more stimulus, everything's going to work out just grand, so let's get ahead of the commodity market. I think it's a little early, but we'll see. Natural gas is trading at $2.63. A good day for both gold and silver. Gold is at $1,912 an ounce, and silver is at $24.39 an ounce. Now to Uncle Sam's 10-year junk note. Remember, we have been range-bound for a very, very long time. The 10-year junk note is now yielding 0.77%. Okay, we used to be 0.65, 0.67, 0.65, 0.67, back and forth in a very tight range. Now we're exploding to the upside. There is an inverse relationship between the price of a bond and its yield. So if the yield is going up, that means the price is going down. That means there has been a sell-off in the bond market. Now, we have been stating here, because a lot of people said, well, that recent rally within the U.S. dollar, that might be some sort of flight to safety. Well, we said, well, what's the bond market telling us? It wasn't telling us that, because it wasn't moving. And if we thought that there was going to be a flight to safety, what you would witness in the bond market would be treasuries catching a bid, meaning the price is going to go higher and the yield is going to go lower. Well, that's the exact opposite right now. So this is clearly not any type of safe haven play. This is a sell-off in the bond market, and the question is why and who's doing it. Is this portfolio manager saying, okay, we need to rebalance because it was the end of the third quarter, we're now in the fourth quarter? Is this foreign holders of U.S. debt saying, oh, we don't want it anymore because you guys got that printing press on like you're a banana republic, because we are. We can't trust it. And congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, the U.S. debt is now officially over $27 trillion. I was always rounding up. I figured, what the hell's the difference? About a couple $100 billion amongst friends. Now we are officially over $27 trillion. Check it out, usdebtclock.org, to see it for yourself. Foreign holders of U.S. bonds, U.S. debt, I should say, are they dumping them? Is this maybe a scenario where foreign holders of U.S. debt, or those who have to pay back their debts in U.S. dollars, are they selling treasuries to get U.S. dollars so they can pay off their debts? So there's a lot of unanswered questions. Or is this just simply the market saying, okay, you know what? There's no more risk. Forget the zombie corporations. Forget that this is the economy of the living dead. Forget 26.5 million Americans claiming some form of unemployment insurance. Forget the 3.8 million permanent job losers. Forget all of the fundamentals. It's now safe to get out of those quote-unquote safe haven assets of the treasury market. And now we can just flow and flush all of our money into the stock market, into the casino. We'll see how this plays out. But this was a big, big move in the bond market. And do not forget, we have been discussing this for quite a while, because the bond market dwarfs the stock market by orders of magnitude. That's where the real information is located. That's where you're going to find out what's actually taking place. For what we've been witnessing, the bond market has not been buying into any type of significant, miraculous, super-duper V-shaped recovery. In fact, it was quite the opposite. What else this might indicate are traders, are investors starting to become concerned with the threat of inflation, because inflation is going to destroy bonds. So we don't want them. Let's get rid of them. Let's get into something a little bit more risky at record high valuation. So this is just a disaster in the making. What our policy officials and policymakers have done with respect to fiscal policy and monetary policy have set the stage for the greatest depression. We were already in the midst of the greatest depression, just many people don't realize it because of all of this funny money circulating, going around and around and around, kicking the can down the road, making everything seem like it's okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, federal, state, and local, we have spent $9.6 trillion to date. And what has it gotten us? Where has it gotten us? We still have tens of millions of Americans facing evictions. This is waiting in the wings. Again, 26.5 million Americans still claiming some form of unemployment insurance. Is this even mentioned? Does the Trump campaign and administration, do they have a plan for this? Does the Biden administration potentially, or the Biden campaign, do they have policies for this? Of course not. And it's not even discussed. It's not even discussed. An over $4 trillion deficit this year alone? Is that even mentioned? No, it's not. And people can't connect the dots. That this debt has stolen so much future prosperity, it is disgusting. It is unethical, it is immoral, it is un-American. And these questions aren't even brought up. They're not even brought up. The question, that investigation, the FinCEN investigation with all of the banks and all of the money laundering for terrorist organizations, for drug traffickers, for human traffickers, for gun running, and a whole bunch of other illegal activities. That's not even mentioned. $2 trillion of suspicious activity reports have been filed over the past decade. Not a word. Not a word. More major historic fines from banks being charged to banks. J.P. Morgan got caught up once again rigging the metals market, of course gold and silver, and the treasury market. They paid some $920 million fine. Is this blasted all over the news? No, of course not. Why would it be? Is Joe Biden or President Trump going to be asked a question on this? No, of course not. Why? Because these guys line their political coffers. These guys, the banks, hire their kids with 7-figure salaries. These these banks finance the businesses of these guys' children. They give them loans. They give them business. They're not going to go after them. We're bailing them out. The whole Nobody Cares Act was a bailout to the banks. Excuse me, this time, you were the middleman. Great financial crisis? There was no middleman. The government just gave them the money. This time, you became the middleman because the government was smart enough to know what was going to happen. It would have been pitchforks in the streets immediately if you went over the heads of the Americans. But if they can give you a check for $1,200, if they can give you that sit down, shut up money, well, that's exactly what you're going to do, and that's exactly what happened. If you're unemployed and we can kick you back another $600 per week, you're going to sit down and shut up, aren't you? You're going to let us get away with billions and trillions of dollars, giving it to our buddies at the drop of a hat, to the world's largest corporations, not just American corporations, but the world's largest. You're not going to pipe up, are you? Because we gave you $1,200, or we gave you an extra $600 per week. Sit down and shut up. And people are more fascinated and more concerned and more outraged about whether having to wear a mask during a pandemic, whether they should eat a Goya bean, or whether a statue should remain standing or whether it should be removed. Forget all of these structural issues that are destroying this country, that have stolen future prosperity from the younger generations and current generations. Forget all that stuff. Masks, beans, and statues. Now, could it be any surprise that we have to go through the Trump show when that's the mentality in this country? Is it any surprise that on the other side of that ticket is Joe Biden? 330 million Americans, and these demented idiots are the best we can do. You couldn't write this if you tried, but this is where we are. How anybody can go into the booth and vote for these idiots is beyond me, but that's exactly what's going to happen. You have another option, Jo Jorgensen, the Libertarian candidate, but nobody's going to give her a chance, even though she has earned her way on every single ballot in the country. Everybody is going to see her name, and they're going to say, who is this? I have no idea who this is. And that pretty much tells you all you need to know, ladies and gentlemen, right there, if you cannot grasp everything else that I have been mentioning. This is a two-party system. Divide and conquer. Republican, Democrat. That's it. And this is supposed to be the land of the free, home of the brave. What differentiates us between the Chinese Communist Party? I guess, well, in China you get one party. Here in the U.S. you get two. So somehow that makes us, I guess, twice as good as China. This is ridiculous. And I have all the evidence in my corner. All of it. You have nothing. Because you've been on each side of the aisle. You've been on each side of the issue. Just a question of when, what politician said what when. That's all it is. That's all it is. Perfect example right now is the nomination and confirmation process right now of a potential Justice Amy Coney Barrett. The Republicans didn't have to pipe up a few years ago and say, well, you know, if we're in the middle of an election and there should be a vacancy on the Supreme Court, we're going to let that election decide the fate of the court. They didn't have to say that. That's not in the Constitution. There's an empty seat. The president can appoint. The Senate can vote. That's it. You don't have to say anything, but you did. You opened your mouth. You made a statement. Now you are once again proving your hypocrisy. This is why everybody is sick and tired of these jokers. If the positions were reversed and it was the Democrats right now, they would be doing the same thing. There's no question about it, but that's the problem. As I stated a couple weeks ago, nobody is going to do the honorable thing. Nobody is going to fall on the sword and say, you know what? You're right. I said it 12 different ways. Hold me accountable. We're not going to do X, Y, Z. So we're not going to do X, Y, Z. It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. Because the Democrats are going to say, well, you said it, so you fall on the sword. And the Democrats and the Republicans will say, oh, hell no. Because if it was you, you wouldn't fall on the sword, so I'm not going to fall on the sword. Leave these parties immediately if you haven't done so already. I don't know what you're waiting for. I don't know what you're waiting for. They left you a long time ago. They do not deserve your respect. They have not earned it, and they don't deserve your vote. Don't give it to them. Two demented idiots, and one of them is going to end up in the White House. Talking about one of them in the White House, well, the president is back at the White House. I don't know why he couldn't remain in the hospital for another couple of days. He is on, from what we're being told anyway, he is on an experimental cocktail of drugs. They seem to be working. I hope that's the case. But even as the president's physician, Dr. Conley, said this afternoon, he's not entirely out of the woods. Well, then, Mr. President, just stay in the hospital for a couple more days. There's no reason to put on a show, to get a photo op of you flying in Marine One back to the White House, to walk up the steps, to turn around, to take your mask off, to salute the Marines flying Marine One, and then to turn around and walk into the White House without a mask on, even though there are a number of other people within the White House now who have tested positive for COVID-19, including Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. Okay, this is just one cluster after the next. No pun intended. But what do you expect? This is the Trump show. It's about putting on a show of strength. It's okay to be sick, Mr. President, and it's okay to get better. It's okay to take another day or two at Walter Reed. That's where you should be. It's okay. You're in the executive suite. You're feeling better. Fantastic. They have an office set up for you. Great. Do your work there. Make your phone calls there. Rest up. Because God forbid something happens and he has to go back. Well, what's that going to turn into? Another you-know-what show. Back and forth, back and forth. We don't need it. And of course, as I was stating yesterday, the communication on all of this has been ridiculous. The transparency on this has basically been non-existent. The White House wants to claim that the president has been tested and tested and tested basically on a daily basis. And then when the press corps pushes the White House and pushes Dr. Conley on asking him this question, well, when was the last time the president tested negative? Nobody wants to answer it. What the reporters and what the media are trying to get at is a timeline. Timelines are very important. Go to court. The prosecution and or the defense are going to stress the importance of a timeline because it can prove or disprove the case. It can be a very important piece of evidence. Could the defendant committed this crime? Could he have done this, that, or the other? Or does the timeline say, no, not happening? It's important. It's important to know when the president last tested negative. Because he might have tested positive, of course. But when? Was he asymptomatic? And he said, yeah, I'm positive, but I feel fine. I'm not showing any symptoms, so screw it. Let's go on. Let's go to a rally. Let's go to the debate. Let's do whatever. Who cares? This just seems like a cover-up. That should be a simple question to answer. If the man is tested every day, as the White House claims, then this should be very simple to answer. But they don't want to answer the question. The president's physician, he wants to tell everybody all of the good news about the president, which is good to know. But if it should be something that might not paint a very bright picture for the president's health, oh no, I'm not going to talk about that. That falls under HIPAA, the Health Information Privacy Act, if you will. I'm not going to mention any of that stuff. The good stuff, I'll talk about. The bad stuff, no. Did the president have pneumonia? Or is there some scarring in the president's lungs, etc., etc., etc.? Not talking about it. Well, the American people do have a right to know the whole truth. It doesn't have to be every single nitty-gritty detail. But there has to be a better picture, a fuller picture of what's going on. He is the executive branch of government. And history suggests that most presidents are open and transparent. A lot of them side on being overly transparent as opposed to the counter, because they understand the significance of their office and they understand that they are a very public official. And the American people have certain rights to know this information. But most likely, we're not going to get it. So I was once again disappointed with the president for making this. Really, it was just a photo op, another photo op. I want the man to get better. There's no question about that. But there's no reason why he couldn't have stayed in the hospital for another couple of days. Would have been very easy to do so. Would have been better, claiming now that there's nothing to fear. I had it finally. Now I understand it. I mean, that's just a joke, and that is very insensitive to the millions of people who have had it, the couple 100,000 who are dead, and all of the friends and family who have suffered the consequences of losing a loved one. Now, again, we can have that debate if these numbers are inflated. I'm sure some of them are. There's no question. But nonetheless, this is a serious virus. It needs to be treated seriously. And these people lost their lives. They lost loved ones. Or a lot of people were close to dying. It just shows that lack of empathy because the president claimed, well, I got it, so now I understand it. Well, empathy is not having it, but understanding, or at least putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. But the president shows time and time again that he doesn't have the ability to do that. And that is very much needed in this moment, in this hour. Amongst a whole host of other characteristics and qualities that this president just does not seem to have. This is a very toxic environment in this country, throughout this country, coast to coast. And the president likes to fan the flames. He likes the chaos. He does well in and with the chaos. Well, Mr. President, that's fine if you do. Most of the country doesn't, and it doesn't deserve it. Or maybe we do deserve it, and this is what we get. But I don't like it because I don't like paying for it. So if you want to give me an exemption that I don't have to pay for all this crap, then okay, maybe I can sit this out and not give a damn. But I don't think that's going to happen. We're all paying for it. And it's not good. It's not funny. And the politics on all of this has to stop. The man should have risen to the occasion a long time ago. They go low, you go high. He should have taken that from Michelle Obama, should have lived it, should have preached it, and should keep going with it. But now it's too late. We're 30 days away from an election. It ain't going to happen. And again, the whole credibility of the White House and the president with all this back and forth, talking out of both sides of his mouth, telling Bob Woodward one thing on tape and then telling the country the other. And even then, after that, because we did those other town halls a couple weeks ago, where the president, after Bob Woodward's book came out and those tapes came out, President Trump is there. And of course, he's questioned about this. Oh, I didn't downplay it. I upplayed it. I upplayed it? What does that mean? And now he's back to Twitter today saying that there's nothing to fear. COVID's no big deal. So now he's downplaying again. He upplayed it, downplayed it, upplayed it, downplayed it. Both sides of his mouth. You really want 4 more years of this nonsense? Oh, the Trump show. Retire it. Cancel the season. We're done with it. Biden's town hall event this evening, again in Miami, Florida, battleground state, hosted by NBC. And the moderator was Lester Holt. This was a Joe Biden performance. Nothing to write home about. Again, just the other side of this demented coin toss that we have here in this election. Stammered, stumbled like he does. A couple good answers that he gave according to what his party might want to hear. Again, as I like to say, par for the course. Nothing fascinating, nothing that's going to derail the campaign. Can the Trump administration or Republicans in support of Trump, can they throw up, put together some sort of clip that has him stumbling? Sure, they could, but they can always find that. So that's nothing surprising. The questions from the audience were, again, very much in agreement with what we just discussed. None of the structural issues are really brought up at all. Race relations, how would you handle COVID-19? How can we reopen the schools? Some young woman came up and asked a question about her birth control. I don't want to pay for your damn birth control. How about that one? Justice Amy Coney Barrett, she becomes the justice on the Supreme Court. Is she going to take it away? Roe v. Wade is going to get shut down? I mean, come on. This is what this idiot has on her mind. Well, they're going to take away my birth control? What are they going to do with it? I can't afford it. What am I going to do? This is beyond laughable. This is the banana republic. This is the country that is in complete decline. Economic, social, political. Bing, bang, boom, and the hits just keep on coming. This is what this woman is thinking about. Then there was another young gentleman that came up. He claims he was from Generation Z. He says, Mr. Biden, how are you going to be able to represent our generation because there's a 50-some year gap between our ages? All right, that's somewhat of a reasonable question, but guess what? Generation Z, you have nobody at the age of 35, so I don't know what type of representation you're looking for. This guy screwed you. The one that's in there right now is signing off on the Nobody Cares Act and is ready to sign off another $2 trillion. So guess what, Junior? You just got screwed again. Makes no difference. They are not representing you. You're absolutely right. Check out the Kapital News in my letter from March. Representation and recourse. You have neither. You have no representation in Congress, and you have no recourse. They're in charge. They're giving all the funny money to their buddies. You get nothing. You get the scraps, and when you get it, it's sit down and shut up money so you can pay off your credit card, you can pay off your loans, and that going straight to the bank. You see how this works? This is why I am totally against all of these bailouts, because I knew all of these shenanigans were going to take place. And this doesn't even count the fraud that's going on, but you can consider the whole thing a fraud because we don't have the money. So, the Trump show, the Biden town hall, that's what you got, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you love it? Now, if you look at the Electoral College Map, once again, I just want to bring this up because we're obviously getting closer. Every single day we're getting closer to the election. And I do believe I brought this one particular map up in our discussion on the Electoral College Map math last week. But this is just interesting, again, to show how tight this race can be. But all you need is 270 Electoral College votes. So, with that said, and this is a much bigger uphill climb for Trump-Pence than it is for Biden-Harris. If Biden can win Nevada, which is a state that Hillary Clinton won, 6 votes. If he can win Arizona, which would be a flip, because Trump won Arizona last time, but as I stated last week, Cindy McCain, the wife of the late Senator John McCain, has endorsed Joe Biden. You also have a senator's race that is leaning towards the Democratic candidate, astronaut Mark Kelly, against Republican incumbent Senator McSally. Who doesn't love an astronaut? So he's up in the polls, which could very much mean that the state of Arizona could flip to Biden-Harris ticket. So if you get Nevada, that's 6 votes. If you flip Arizona to the blue state, you get 11 votes. Now, if Biden can also flip the state of Iowa, another 6 votes, and you have Senator Joni Ernst, who is in a contested battle as well. She's a Republican. If she should lose, that might also flip the state to the Democratic Party as well. So that gives you Nevada, Arizona, Iowa. If Joe Biden can carry Pennsylvania, which in the state polls he is up, and he has been consistently up over the president for quite a while now. Pennsylvania is historically more of a Democratic-leaning state when it comes to presidential elections. And then just to throw in an extra one for the kicker, because he will need one more, you can give Biden Maine's 2nd district, which is 1 electoral college vote. So, Nevada, Arizona, Iowa, Pennsylvania, and the 2nd district in Maine gives Joe Biden 270 electoral college votes. That means Trump can win Texas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and that 1 vote in the 2nd district of Nebraska, and he is no longer the president of the United States. That's big. That is huge. And that is a realistic map. Most of the maps that we discussed last week are based in some type of reality. Of course, this is 2020. Anything can happen, but that is a realistic map. 538 electoral college votes you need, a majority, plus 1, 270. So that'll be 270 to 268. Talk about contested. Talk about that going to the courts. Talk about a nightmare scenario. But that's realistic, as is the 269-269 tie. That's a realistic map as well. We are far from over, despite the gaffes, despite the lunacy, despite the stupidity. We still got 30 days to go, and anything can happen. Because we had the national embarrassment, the national disgrace in that first debate. We're going to have Senator Kamala Harris versus Mike Pence this Wednesday. We'll see how that goes. We'll see what happens with Trump's health as to whether or not there is going to be further debates between Trump and Biden, even maybe if they do it remotely, over Zoom or over obviously online. That could happen. My God, is this a crazy year? And believe me, I think next year might even be worse because we've just kicked the can down the road with, several $1 trillion out of nowhere. Reality is going to be sinking in, and it's not going to be a pretty picture. But that's it. That's the Trump show and the Biden town hall, and a little bit more electoral math to think about as we progress to the 3rd of November. Stay diversified, stay vigilant, and stay with the Kapital News. I am Alex Koritis. Godspeed.